Yeah.
What it
Yeah.
do? I think I was in the wrong. I hit the wrong link. My bad on that.
All good. All good. What up, bro?
And I can't call it. Young, black, and beautiful.
Talk it.
Oh man, life's good.
Doing it.
Adrian's like,
I
yeah. No, I'm like,
I still have your scribble scrabble in on the whiteboard behind me. And I was trying to figure out what that conversation was. And I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I know those notes probably they don't make any sense. It's just like random thoughts, question marks.
Dope. Hey man, I appreciate you hopping on here, bro.
Hey man, it's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you, inviting me.
So now let's go ahead and hop into it. Welcome to Masterminds with James Allen. He is I and I am him. And today, let me back up. Got a shout out to a special co-host we got today. The one and only. Hey, are you pouring of the bottles? Oh, okay. So today we got Drees. Okay, we don't have Adrian Mendez today. It's Drees. All right. So
Bottle's still
man,
closed though.
Okay. Oh, yeah, he had to keep it on brand.
Right.
So shout out to my brother for hopping on here with me. No doubt. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
And oh man, today, man, we got someone special hopping onto the Masterminds podcast. I really appreciate this brother hopping on and just rapping with us. So shout out to him for that. And before we go ahead and hop into it, let's give the proper due on the I guess the introduction. So let's start off with this guy here. If you are in New Orleans or in the Southeast region, he doesn't need an introduction, but I'm gonna give him one anyways. Yeah.
I'm known up and down I-10. You heard me?
And right. So, yeah, this brother right here has, is a graduate, from Loyola and the London School of Economics. Man, bruv. Talk about
In
that.
It.
Yeah, bruv. And he was an exec analyst at Lucid. Right. So shout out to that. He is also currently the director of New Orleans Venture for America. Damn. All right. Claps to that. And, he is the owner, creator, founder of Exclave Spirits and River Basin Distillery in New Orleans. The one, the only, Andrew Albert. What up, bro? Yes. Yes.
Cool,
hold on, blurring it out. There you go.
That's that technology right there.
Right.
Yeah, man. I feel like I should be taking a sip too. Damn, I ain't know.
Right. I'm about to open the bottle.
You so easily influenced. You was gonna open that shit anyways.
Right.
Well, since Andrew's doing it.
Well,
you got me here.
Right.
No, man. Hey, how you doing, bro?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm coming up on 4 weeks until my son is here, so that's exciting. It's a whole new, frame of thinking about shit. Business is still good though. Life's good. I mean, I can't complain. I'm blessed.
Hey. So, congrats on the firstborn, right?
Firstborn, yes, sir.
And you're having a son. Yo, did you call your shot like me? I called my shot. I was like, it's a boy. Stop talking to me about anything else.
I thought it was a girl for real. What was funny, the wife was like immediately, she was like, it's a boy. I'm like, nah, we doing it back and forth. And what about this? She's like, it's a boy. Like,
like I know.
Yeah, right. We did the whole ultrasound, and the nurse tech was like, that's a boy.
Yo, but did you have a preference? Did you care what?
Honestly, what's funny? It's funny to say that because I remember I did have a preference, but now I feel so silly like having a preference.
Yeah.
Before I was like, man, I want a girl, right? I'm like, look, when the shit hits the fan, and you old and alone, daughters, they got their sons.
Right.
I don't know. It's like, bro, we got a financial decision we need to make. So
right, you gonna stay at their home.
Facts.
Exactly.
Facts. No, man, that's dope, bro. That's dope. So, nah, man, I'm really excited about that. Yeah, Adrian's been telling me, he's like, man, he's got one on the way. So if you're trying to, rap
countdown,
rap with him, like, get him on the podcast sooner than later. So Nah, shout out to that, man.
Appreciate that, man. So,
yeah.
Talk about whatever you want to talk about, man.
So let's just back it up. Masterminds is really just about, getting like-minded entrepreneurs together, and we just talk about everything, bro. This isn't like, I'm not gonna ask you like, for your SWOT analysis and no shit like that. You know what I'm saying? It's really just kind of and it all started back from when Adrian and we talk like this at least once or twice a week still, and we're just kind of talking about where we're at in our business, comparing notes. But we talk about everything under the sun, from the business to like the most of ratchet shit of like future lyrics and how toxic he is. And so shout out to toxicity. I don't know. Should I be shouting that out? I don't know.
I don't edit.
Everybody got a little touch of toxicity,
Right. And speaking of toxicity, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Fuck it, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna push it.
We started. The door is open. Let's go.
Yo, having a kid will encourage some of that toxicity. Now, you don't have to comment on that because you got one on the way. But hell, I'm already in it. Having a kid will kind of push you there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe a little bit of,
for sure.
Drinking when the wife can't, and pouring up and making the wife be the DD or shit, maybe a little bit of, once the kid comes, a little bit of gaslighting and shit, just like
that's ridiculous.
Just a little touch of it, like what you mean? I ordered that formula. You don't see it? I mean, it should be coming in. You know what I'm saying?
It's on Amazon. It's coming. It's late.
Right. So, damn, baby, I love you. So,
man, what's funny about that point though?
Yeah.
Not to completely derail this conversation, but it's just top of mind.
Go for it.
I'm like still trying to figure out like how I feel about Kendrick's album, and throughout, like the one thing I will say is a live like therapy session, right? Like the peaks, the valleys, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's funny, the Father Time song in particular, right? I've been like listening to it, and it's a weird balance between like, they got some bullshit that like I was told in terms of like, this is how you're supposed to move and survive.
Right.
Like, do I want to pass those things on?
Right.
Because it's a weird position. Like, technically speaking, I got to where I am by like adhering to some of the bullshit, right?
Yep.
It's like, so is it time bound? Is it like person bound? Like I'm curious what you think if you've heard the album and, have worked through it. Like, how much of the toxicity should you transfer to generations?
So that's a couple of questions you had in there. So first one is, yes, I have heard the album. My opinion on it is I've only heard it 2 times complete, through. And my initial assessment on that is I've got to sit with it more because it's heavy. It's heavy. And I just can't be like, oh yeah, you know what I'm saying? It's where to rank it amongst its discography or anything like that. Now there are some joints on there. Father Time was one. The record with him going back and forth with a girl.
Man.
Yes, that one. I was like, damn. Like it was, that one was serious. But how much should we pass on to our kids? It's difficult, man, because I do have a son, and he's already like in that point where in daycare he could just cry about his feelings and everyone will cry about it, you know what I'm saying? It's all good. But now he's getting to the point he's about to go into 1st grade, and they're like, yo, like, cry baby, like, quit that shit out. And me, I'm just like, well, you acting like a crybaby, like, suck that shit up, you know what I'm saying? But it's where to balance, because I'm not saying like, yo, suppress your feelings and hold them into your 20 and hate me about it, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's like, hey, as a man, this is kind of how we have to move. Like, don't position yourself like a sucker. And it's kind of hard to have that balance, like, yo, we're still human and you could cry, but maybe it's not the best to cry in front of like 8 other dudes on the playground. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I don't know, Drees, what's your thoughts on the
I mean, I don't have kids, but I think the hard reality is that, you know, you can shelter yourself or be sheltered, and the world is just not sheltered, you know. And you can move, you know, to a certain time in your life. Maybe you're sheltered until further out in life. But that hit, unless you see a little dose of reality, that fall is going to hurt a lot more if you don't know what's on the other side. That's just what comes to mind, you know?
Right. And that's why I am intentionally hard on him in areas, and Rachel doesn't like that. She understands it. She doesn't like it, but I'm like that for a reason, because I'm like, yo, I mean, you've got to kind of be ready, bro. Like, you know, you've got to be real. Step out there. Yeah. So, I mean, damn, bro, good questions, man. I mean, what else you got? We can flip it around. No, I'm joking.
I'm like, man, I'm interviewing this man on his show.
No, it ain't.
Hey, it's wide open.
This is definitely wide open. And I was going to get to that Kendrick album, man. Other than that, I mean, what else y'all listening to? Like I said, Jack Drop, Jack Harlow. You know, it was, to me, it sounded like a Drake album to me, to be honest with you, which is not a bad thing, but it's not Drake, and it didn't sound
a formula.
Yeah, it was definitely formulaic in that way. And then Future dropped, and every time I listen to his lyrics, I laugh, and then I call you and tell you what the hell he's saying. Like, this shit is hilarious to me, bro. It's like what
he just be out there, man. He just like saying. The funny thing is though, is like, we're, at least James and I, damn near in our 40s. You're almost 30. But if you're listening to this and you're 19, like, that's what you think is reality is fucking hilarious.
Because you cannot do that many drugs and survive.
Right.
What'd you say?
Like, Andrew? When you're 19, you're like, man, this nigga Future might be on to something.
Right.
Let's go. Let's go.
No, sir. But I mean, hey, the man made March Madness, so I can, I cannot refute him on that. Come on, Drew, you got to get those AirPods right.
I know, AirPods. I'm gonna take them off.
Dope.
We were talking about AirPods and how shitty they are, like the pros specifically. That was like a few weeks ago. I feel like we were complaining about they don't stay in. Battery.
Yeah.
It's like,
I told James about it. I bought an extra like little foam tip and shit, and I was like, man, I almost brought to work my headphones, but fucking forgot them.
Yo, somebody, there's a whole like family suing Apple and about their AirPods, and about like, the kid lost his hearing permanently. And they about to get paid if they can prove it. They about to get paid.
Damn.
I'm about to go to the Apple store and act like I can't hear shit. See, it's like, give me a free. I'll sell it right now for an iPad and something.
Right. Put me up with something.
Try to get some. Right.
Apple Pencil or something.
Right.
Nah. But shit, man. I mean, 15 minutes in, man. I just as we get into the discussion, I first want to start off with Andrew, bro. Like how, for real, like it's when I look at other entrepreneurs that I know, I've seen people start clothing lines. I've seen people start, restaurants and me and my wife, we own, a few real estate companies, but I just don't see too many people in general, and too many people, particularly like us, that own their own spirits and distillery companies. So, I mean, how, bro? And what got you there? Like, I mean, to me, it would just be daunting from the fact of like, I guess the certain hoops you have to go through for approvals and the equipment and the process. I mean, do you come from the Uncle Nearest Line or something like that? Did you have a family lineage or like?
Man, I wish. You know how easy marketing would implement?
Right.
Easy. We could pitch that to Netflix, get that documentary, cry on screen, do all of that shit. But now, that's a good question, and it's funny because when I like explain and tell people the story, there's always like that's it. Like it was like there was no rocket science, no magic stuff. I was like, nah, man, it was one of those things. And I think for me, it's probably fitting that we started talking about music to kick it off, because like that music in general is just like such a big part of my life in terms of like, I can't be quiet. Like soon as I wake up, gotta press play on something when I'm cleaning, thinking, all of that stuff. And I'm of that generation where Hove is like, it's Hove, man.
My guy.
Oh boy. He's opening up a can of worms over here.
My guy.
Bust out the book, James. Bust out the book.
And
I mean, that's mine right now.
And as like a whole fan, especially Reasonable Doubt, it was,
oh yeah,
the fucking playbook, the blueprint. Like I'm giving you game. Like Hove did this, so you don't have to
go through that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like that whole thing. And I think it's subconsciously I realized that there's always like a different angle to like play something. Like there's what they tell you you're supposed to do. Then there's what like the people that you want to be, like what they do. And those two paths is never really the same thing.
Woo! Talk about it. So right there, I'm sorry. We could come back to that, but that was a good point. I want to get back to that, but yeah, keep going. I'm sorry.
And it was like, I think that's, and Adrian will tell you, like, that's how I look at the world. Anytime like something is presented, I'm like, oh, okay, word. But then I try and look at it from like this angle and try and like poke holes and flip it over to see, what's the pathway, right? So like, that's the foundation. That's how I think about a lot of shit. And I had this moment where I was at Loyola, Loyola Tulane, the Boot is like the college bar, right?
Right.
And it's like every college, they have, the little situation that they do, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Tigerland and Baton Rouge, all that shit.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, I'm like, yo, like, what is Xavier and Dillard's spot? Like what's the spot that the bar that you go to, right? Like, motherfuckers drink, niggas drink.
Right,
like,
right.
Why doesn't it exist? And I was like, this could be like an interesting opportunity. You know what I mean? Like they publicize the number of fucking students that come. Like I can reasonably guess that the vast majority of them drinks. I'm like, shit, a college bar that's specifically like close to Dillard or close to Xavier, like that's interesting in the city of New Orleans. All right, cool. And for me, the whole, like I like shit talk, play music, all of that. So I really, my career aspirations was to just own a bar, play music, talk shit. If I feel like cooking, get in the back, make something. If not, whatever. Like that's more so like this is the lifestyle that I want to live. You know what I mean? And then I really started like trying to put pen to paper. I'm like, all right, where would the bar be? How much is, property cost in that area? If we converting from residential to commercial, what's that process? What's, zoning, the insurance, all of this stuff, the numbers, right?
Right.
Then I realized like that's razor thin margins. Like that's a real lifestyle business. Like you gotta be in it 24/7, 365, the whole thing.
Facts.
And I like nice shit, man. Like I told you, I grew up listening to Hov, man. Hot Boys, Cash Money. I want the Rolexes and all. I want all that shit too.
Talk about it. Yeah.
And I'm like, these barroom margins, they're not gonna put me in that position. And I had, the real like frank realization. I'm like, okay, if they margins suck, the people they buying from, they margins gotta be a little bit better because they can sell to unlimited number of people. They don't have this overhead. They don't have to pay this insurance. It's a different business model. Then this is around the time that like craft whiskey and craft spirits in general was like really, really booming. So High West, Smooth Ambler, like this, I think this might be either this is right before they sold or right after they sold. Something around like that time period. So it's And, you know, it's in the industry sort of like consciousness of like what new spirits are looking like. And my original thought was, I'm like, damn, man, like craft whiskey is like this, you know, motherfucker with a long beard. They produce very limited, small quantities. Like, I don't know how to tap into that. And then I stepped back and looked at, hold up, man. Just in a city in New Orleans, right? How many, we have what, our population is 350,000, something like that. But we bringing in tens of millions of people literally to drink, right? Like in this place, just to drink.
Every
day.
And that's not like a craft, like that demand is not a craft supply. Like that's industrial, like size supply.
Yes,
So
sir.
like, all right, cool. Yeah. All y'all motherfuckers can't be craft. And I know that there's some way for me to go straight to like the source and get, you know, I want those prices. Give me that stuff. And that's when I realized, you know, which is probably like the worst kept secret in whiskey, is that the vast majority of like the new hot up and coming brands, either they're 100% sourced, meaning they buy from a distillery and finish the product themselves, or they supplant, you know, whatever they're distilling in-house with that source product, right? Cheaper, is consistent sort of quality, right? It works to get small brands off of the ground, right? If you think about it, if we build out a distillery that's, for the sake of this argument, 50,000 square feet, 100,000 square feet, right? And the capacity that we have to produce on any given year is, I don't know, 1 million cases or some ridiculous number, right? There's very few brands that can actually fulfill that capacity. You got Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, Buffalo Trace, like all the names you know. But what about everybody else? So if your capacity is stupid high, then I know like there's something where like I can slide in and say, look, man, I'll give you X per barrel. Like, let me get that stuff that I know you can't even sell anyway because the market is so saturated. So now like I'm sort of explaining like how like my business model works and like my entry point. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's like it's really easy, right? And not easy in the sense that like anybody can do it. It's not like intellectually challenging. You gotta do this thing and do this thing, and then boom, you're good to go. So I was like, all right, cool. This is how like this world is working. And
let me ask you this just right quick. You're like 21, 22 figuring this out. So like,
it's crazy.
Where do you go? Like you're, even just when you tell us right now, yeah, you figured it out. But like when you're trying to figure it out, like, is it all internet research? Is it like, I'm going to the distilleries and asking questions? Like, where do you go? And which one was the best source of like the aha, I got it?
For sure. So that's a great question. Reddit. Reddit was like, that was zero. Like every, you know, Reddit has a subreddit, every possible topic that you could think of. There, the ADI forums, so the American Distilling Institute forums. Basically, you know, it's funny. It's no different than like what I used to do when I was in love with like sneakers and shit, being on Nike Talk, following the blogs, following the forums. On those forums is like, that's where I got the lingo. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what the fuck I'm talking about, but like I could fake a real conversation enough to get that game.
Right.
So once I had like the sort of like working vocabulary of everything, dude, it's no bullshit. I would just call up distilleries. Like, I'd be like, yo, I played student card. I was like, yo, I'm working on this project, right? I'm at this point I was at LSE. So I'm in London, like, you know, doing this outreach and shit. And honestly, even when I left school, I probably played the student card up until like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, bro, that shit is crazy.
Because
that's a little game right there. That's game right there. Yeah.
James and I used that shit when we were in grad school. Like that shit is, it's the most open door that you get because you're not competitive with them.
Exactly.
So like, I teach you, sure, I'll teach you, but you know, you go somewhere else and run, you know, whatever else you're doing with your life, but not like in the game industry.
100%.
That's all.
I low key want to just get like a visiting like professorship or some shit like that, or just so I could have that card in the back pocket like at all times.
All access.
goddamn wolf in sheep clothing, man. But yeah, nah.
Well, no, the minute you tell somebody you're a student, they tell you everything. So
everything.
The best phone call that I had, and I don't even know if I should say this. I'm gonna think about it and maybe
say it.
But I got connected to Smooth Ambler in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Smooth Ambler they were probably like, I think they ended up selling for like 60, 70 mil or something. You can probably Google it, whatever the right number is. But that, it piqued my interest. I'm like, oh, okay, you went from, and they were sourcing too. Like that's a key component. Like I was looking for those distilleries where they were sourcing product to understand like how they grew from just that initial couple barrels to selling for that amount. And I got lucky. The owner's son lives in New Orleans, and I don't know how I even got connected to him. It's probably like LinkedIn, Google stalking, shit like that. Yep. I hit his son. I'm like, yo, can I buy you a coffee? I see you used to work at Smooth Ambler, blah, 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 blah. I just got questions. And so we chopped it for like 30 minutes, and he was like, oh, I see what you're trying to do. Like, you need to talk to Pops. So he gave me his Pops number. Bro, no bullshit. I worked at Lucid, so I remember this so fucking vividly. Yeah. I'm in the CEO's office because he was traveling, like doing some other shit, and I would just use his office. And I had probably like a 2-hour conversation with this dude, and he's telling me everything I need to do. This is the game. Watch out for this. You know, you should probably start with this. Somebody else is gonna tell you X, but it's really A, right? Like he giving me real game.
That's right now.
Dude, I'm like, I can't even keep up. I'm trying to like write so fast.
Right.
And typing at the same time. And from that conversation, I was like, it basically, what it reinforced was this shit ain't rocket science. He was like, these are the steps that you need to line up, knock down. If you do it, awesome. If not, that's cool too. And then from there, I think, I was like, all right, cool. Like I could really take a crack at entering this industry. And I think too, it's important to note that in this story, like I mentioned Lucid for a reason, because they raised a Series B in March of 17. The process started September of 16, and I started work August of 16. So my first big project was that fundraise. And I joined that company to like, look, y'all motherfuckers gotta be onto something. Right, like you got office space and I don't know what the fuck you do, but you make money and people want to work here. So like, I got to see what's on the other side. You know what I mean? And through that fundraising process, what I realized was, because at this point, like the company was in a good position, so they weren't like soliciting the raise, but it was more like, this could be a strategic thing. Like, let's open it up and see what happens. So that it was, very low pressure situations. And what happened was, we had like 12 to 15 potential investors come to the city to like hear about the company and shit like that. And I'm in all of these meetings. So I'm like the exec analyst. So in this scenario, my sort of, the person on the other side is the VC analyst, right? Or like the banker that's like putting the decks together. So like we're on that tier, like doing all of the grunt work to compile stuff and trying to anticipate questions, like them giving us like, yo, I need to see this, X, Y, Z, ABC. Like doing that whole process was from September to March of the next year. That was the main thing I'm working on. And bro, what I realized, I'm like, oh, y'all smart, but I don't really think y'all smarter than me. Y'all just had a head start. Like, okay,
talk about it. Yep.
I see how it is. And when I realized the shit wasn't like some special sauce or anything like that, I'm like, oh, this is just inputs and outputs. Like, keep in mind, I study philosophy. So all this shit boils down to very simple arguments. And I'm like, I understand you got the glitz, the glamour, all of that shit. But at the core, you give a fucking product or a service, people give you money. Right. Like it's not really that complex. And then once I realized that, I'm like, okay, cool. Now we have these, premise, conclusion. How do we like tweak each one of those to like maximize it? And then, I mean, dude, I gotta say, Lucid was probably like the best place because it legit was a working MBA for me. Like I'm treating everything that I worked on at Lose It as if I was the CEO. Because like, I'm from the city, so I still, I know I'm a shit. So I'm like, man, this dude running, like, this is what I would do, right? And not even realizing like that muscle, like working that muscle was like helping me to problem solve, iterate, like do all that stuff real quick. And once I had that experience, I was like, oh, cool. Like the business side of stuff is not really difficult, it's strenuous, you know what I mean? And it's like, cool, like I gotta get that hunger up, you know what I mean? Like that stamina is probably like the right word. And I was like, cool, like now, what do I want to build? You know what I mean? Like not what I have to build. Like I feel like I'm in a position where I can start building things that I'm interested in, projects that I'm interested in. And that's really, how I, it's like, all right, cool. Like we can jump into it and do it. One last thing, I have to shout out Uncle Nearest and Fawn Weaver, because their article that they wrote, that big one in the New York Times, that was another part of like that confidence building. Like, no disrespect, like they don't come from the industries and they can do this shit.
Right.
I'm like, fuck, I'm not in the industry, so I should be able to do it too. Like I have a perspective, I have a take, right? Like I'm halfway intelligent. I could read a little bit, like let me see what this is about.
For sure. Yeah, man, bro, much applause to you for, seeing it, visualizing it, and then going to go get it, because a lot of people kind of just see it, they want it, but I hope people who are going to listen to this kind of pick up on that game is like, you really went to go get it. You were just resourceful. In what you did. So, shout out there. But I want to go back to what you were talking about. Essentially, you were saying like, hey, there's rules out there, but rules are made to be broken. And I just want to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that's kind of what I heard from what you were saying. And I just wanted to know, like, how do you feel about that? Because one thing I know is like rules are bullshit. They're only meant to kind of, me personally, rules are in place for, I'll just be honest, like especially in corporate America, from what I've seen, I'm not jaded, but rules are meant for people that are minorities or whatever to follow, but others, they're not following that shit. And even if, if you go by the rules and you still win at the game, they're going to move the goalposts whenever they see fit. And I've seen that shit a lot. So, yeah.
Man, that's real. I think, like what's the cliche? Like rules are meant to be broken, that shit.
Yep.
That's real. But to be honest, man, rules are made by like the first movers. You know what I mean? Like if you think about, think about like fucking like Bugs Bunny cartoon or some shit. Like when they try to do the hunting and you bring the little thing and sweep your steps like on the way back, so like they can't find the tracks. I think it rules like that. Somebody took it on the chin and like broke through some industry, and now that they at the top and they have the leverage and the juice, they're like, no, you gotta do this. Like this is the permits that we need. This is like the taxes that you're gonna pay. You can't own this or this. Like you gotta be in this box, and it's like that's bullshit. Like the NFL changes the damn rules every season. Like we talk about this shit like, oh, like this changed this thing. No, this shit is not written in stone. Like people set that up for themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And we're saying out there, we're not saying break the law or anything like that, but it's be a law-abiding citizen.
Rules and laws are different, right? I think that's the key, right? And even law, like there's certain things that people make for their advantage, like Andrew was saying. The other thing too, I think part of it is like the key component here is like at some point in our lives, we had to learn or we got to see the other side, right? And that aha moment. And going back to earlier the conversation, James, this is one of the things that is passed on from generation to generation, right? And sometimes you either learn it on your own, like out in the wild, and you're like, oh shit, that's the other side.
Yeah.
Or somebody gives you that game early on, or changes your perspective, or changes your critical thinking and how you see things. That to me is really a hard lesson, because it's not all about being contrarian either. Because there is definitely certain things that are like, that's the flow it goes, and it's really hard to go against the current. So like you have to have a certain judgment, you know what I mean? And that's right there. That's the magic sauce, is that judgment, because you could really like drown yourself trying to go against the current on certain things.
For real. No, I mean, good point. All right, so moving on. What does authenticity mean to you?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's also one of my brand pillars too. So
the other two are freedom and self-determination.
I have lots to say about that. Authenticity is it's a prerequisite to freedom for me. You know what I mean? Like you gotta be who you are, right? Like you're the one that has to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. You got to be okay with the choices that you made. You know, like it's easy to say like, man, I've been dealt a bad hand and da-da. Bro, everybody gets dealt a bad hand, you know?
Right. Right.
Do you authentically want to say like, that's who you want to be? Like you are authentically just complaining about circumstances and shit? It's like, yeah, circumstances is fucked up, but you got to navigate those things. And for me, I hate like cliches, but cliches are true for a reason. Like it's no sort of accident that the whole concept of being real in hip hop is like a core component. Right. It has nothing to do with like violating the law and shit like that. It's being like a thorough person, like a stand-up person with principles and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like you got the marathon flag in the back, so I already know we speak the same language.
Yes,
like,
sir.
You got to stand on certain values and principles, because we Black men at the end of the day, like, yeah, I'm sure of myself and I'm confident in my abilities, but like this shit can be taken from me just because of how I look. So if I can't really stand on material things or titles and positions and shit like that, I got to stand on my principles, because you can't take that. Like how I articulate myself and how I present what's in here, like that's the one thing you cannot take away from me unless you like silence my voice. So I think for Black men in particular, being authentic is like, that's the sort of prerequisite to becoming free. You got to speak that truth to power. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And freedom.
Freedom is that's the goal, man. Like it's funny, I get goosebumps thinking about that shit.
What is freedom to you?
Freedom is space. You know what I mean? It's not an end state either. Like it's a mindset. You know what I mean? Like it's something that you have to move a certain way. Like you live freedom. You don't become free. Like you have to live it continuously and to show it. You know what I mean? And I think for me, it's also scary too, right? Because being free is real. Like if you have a certain like line that you have to toe, you sort of beholden to the person that is holding that line, and there's a little bit of escape there, because you can go back to like, hey man, I'm in conversation with this person or this entity or this institution. So like that dialogue is always there, and it's safe in a lot of respects because it's repeatable.
Right.
For me, freedom is real, because when you out there, you out there. Like you the ocean, the Gulf, you know what I mean? And it's a motherfucker. And you gotta stand on them values and principles and shit like that. But like striving and trying to be free, I think it's one of them, like motivating goals for me in a lot of respects.
Right.
Because it started with money, started with this, and then now it's like, nah, it's freedom. That's the thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I really like what you said. It's something to strive for. Now, do you think anyone is actually ever truly free?
I don't think so. I don't think
Me either.
Insofar as like we live in communities and we're tied to people,
Yep.
like there are always going to be concessions that you make that you are not 100% happy about. Like,
yep.
Right.
You about to be a dad.
That comes with it. And it's like you trade off certain things, you know.
Right.
What I mean?
Right.
I think that's why I said it's not really an end state. Because like if it was an end state, when you get there, you're like, it's lonely than a motherfucker around
right.
here. Like maybe I should have made those concessions on the way.
Right.
Right. Right.
When you think about freedom, and as you were conceptualizing this and as part of the pillars of the brand, like, is there anybody you've met before and you're like, damn, he or she is free? Like they figured it out. Like they're on that level that you are, that led to some of that conceptualization.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen it play out in life?
You know what's funny? It's weird because it's always like the creatives. It's always the musicians, the chefs, like the artist sensibility people. And I think, you know, I have a tremendous amount of like respect and admiration because they could be down and out, assed out, and they like, nah, man, this is what I'm doing. Like this is,
right.
I'm committed to this. And I think I know I'm probably not confident enough and sure enough to like make that real like leap into this is the craft and I'm only doing this thing. And so instead of being down about like, man, like I wish I could just, hey man, I'm about to just be in this bitch taking pictures and you know, drawing shit. Like,
right.
I can't do that. So I use it for like motivation and inspiration. Like, man, like that is a state I would love to be in. Like, and what cues can I take from that? You know what I mean? That's why I think the brand looks in this design the way it is, and why, like, yes, the spirits are important, but that's table stakes. That's why I try and position it more about like lifestyle, conversation, like those elements. The reason that we engage with art in the first place. You know what I mean?
Right. You touch on something that I want to kind of maybe switch a little bit the gears, but like, and this is a question I think for pretty much all three of us, because as you move in life and you go to that next valley, the next mountain, there's always another mountaintop to look, and you've never seen it before. Like, how do y'all overcome self-doubt?
Shit. Yeah, right. Give me a bottle.
Right.
Oh, right. I actually got to order. I was meaning to order some last week, but I'm gonna order some as soon as we get off of here. But how do I overcome self-doubt? I mean, sometimes when self-doubt, when the doubt is super strong, I fucking do it anyway. I just do it anyway. I can't say like all the time there, you know, I can completely shut out that self-doubt, but it's like, how bad do you want something? When I was building Southern House Buyers, like a year and a half into it, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Do I need to go back to the corporate America? Blah, blah, blah. And then it was just like, you know what? I'm gonna leave it all out on the table, and if I'm gonna just keep going, and if I gotta go back, I'm gonna be forced back, and it's just like, hey, I knew there was no other, you know, I guess option but to go back and get a job, and it was just, you know, kind of the perseverance through that. I don't know if that necessarily answers your question, but to kind of get through that, I mean, pardon me. Affirmations and getting in the right headspace, keeping positive people around me, and other things as well, and just kind of getting into that mode where I'm just very, very like, you know, when I kind of go, I guess I call it like a dark mode for me. Like I just kind of get into that space where I'm like, it's no drinking, it's very focused, very. I wish I could stay there, but when you get there too, it's exhausting as shit when you get there, because you're like literally willing yourself and willing this thing as much as you can. I wish I could fucking stay there, but yeah, I mean, I'll get into that bag, and then, yeah, I kind of I get there until I steer the ship right, and it's like I wish there was a way for me personally I could have a balance. You know what I mean? To stay in that balance, because sometimes it's like I'm all the way in, and I work myself to like that point of mental exhaustion, and sometimes I'm letting up because of the exhaustion, and shit kind of gets back, and I have to. It's like this ongoing balance. So I don't know. That's me.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think that's the reason I jokingly pour the drink. This is like a real time, like May 20th, 2022. Like this is probably the biggest thing that I personally wrestle with, because like nothing that I do is up to my standards ever. Like it will never be up to my standards. And I think historically, like that's been uncomfortable and unsettling. Like I'm like, fuck man, like I see it so clearly in my mind. Why can't I just put it into the world exactly and make it match exactly? And only recently that I'm trying to like figure out how to like use it to my benefit. You know what I mean? Like how can I harness that? Because like I think indirectly me being so self-critical and like, man, why did you make that decision? Like why did you do this and da 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 da? Sort of like has pushed me more so than the sort of comparison, I guess vices like, envy, jealousy, like, man, this motherfucker did that. Like I could do it better than them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, but you only doing it a little bit better than what they put out into the world.
Right.
Like, when you have the internal self-doubt, that shit, I think I'm supposed to do all kind of crazy shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, yeah, I might not hit that end goal, but I'm like, shit, I'm way past what I, would have otherwise done. And for me, I think I'm trying more so to learn how to cope with it, how to like have like graceful down periods instead of like the crash and burn down periods.
Yeah.
Where you like, I can't speak anymore. Like,
right.
Just drained. I'm like, okay, how do you not do that? Like you can come down a little bit, but like just don't crash. And I think I'm real time trying to figure out like how do you cope with the peaks and valleys of this thing? Because like everybody wants, it's up and to the right. That's how I built this. Everything is up and to the right. Like and it's not like that. It's this. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what I was asking that question, because I think you both kind of answered it in your own ways. But you have to live with it, right? And I think that's the latest conclusion that I've had. It's like you have to live with self-doubt, but you have to also learn from your self-critique, and that's the hard part to me. Because sure, like you got to go do that presentation in front of a bunch of people you don't know. You're gonna get the nerves or whatever, but that's momentary. But like, really, how do you? For me, it's just like trying to quiet that self-doubt and just like not let it. Almost like I've been seeing a lot of stuff on Instagram, like rewiring your brain and to a certain extent, right? And just like as those thoughts hit, how many red items are in this room? Like literally just try to switch my brain from allowing that thought to like process. Because you can easily, I think all of us are especially as you try to be more successful, there's certain things of fear that you combat every day, right?
Yeah.
Because the rug can be pulled, shit could go down, COVID did that for a lot of us. And so it's really like how you let your brain guide you or not. And your brain's, I think, at least from what I've been reading, researching, is just like, we're meant to stay in comfort, right? And comfort could be just like hiding in a corner, right? Not facing the world. So your brain is not necessarily a best friend when it comes to like self-doubt, and so how do you flip the switch? I haven't figured it out.
Piggyback off of what you're saying, I think it's really boils down to the fear of failure, personally. And what I'm learning to do is give myself grace, a little bit more grace than I've done in the past. I used to be like Andrew, is like, God damn it, I need to put it out perfectly. It needs to be like this, and it's not going out until it's perfect. But a lot of what we say within this office is progress over perfection. And so really just giving yourself grace, like, hey, like, yes, it could have been perfect, but God damn it, like, and we'll work to, perfect it. It's probably never going to be perfect, but do it anyway, and keep going and keep moving forward. And a lot of people that I've studied and watched be successful, they manage that really well. You may look at them like year one, shit may look crazy, whatever they're doing. You're like, yo, what are they by year 3 to 5? And you're like, oh shit, they moving. Yeah, they moving. And it's like, it looks, and that thing is, they got there quick, that much more quickly than other people, just because their fear of failure is just like, they're not afraid of it.
What's something that each one of us has failed at that just like was like, damn, that really happened?
I failed horribly at work after MBA. Like corporate America after getting my fucking MBA.
And you wanted that shit too.
I wanted.
You wanted that shit. Like, you're like, I'm gonna be in finance. That's the shit I'm doing.
Right. And so, and so failure. So no, I moved up and I got the jobs and I got the titles and everything like that. But I failed in the sense of, for one, I wasn't moving up as quickly as I'd like to, as my peers. And then 2, it was like the lifestyle and everything I wanted from that job was like not anything what the hell I thought it was. And I took a look at it. The fucking CEO, CFOs were miserable. I mean, you're going back to publicly traded companies, private companies, pardon me. And I was like, yo, is this what I'm working towards? Is this what I want to do? And so I was like, damn, I wasted, I say I wasted 5 years or so after my MBA, figuring that out is like, yo, this isn't what I want to do. And so, yeah, I think going back, if I could do it all over, I probably would still get my MBA, but I would have taken more of a focus on, like, I don't know, but I would have taken the entrepreneurship, all the shit that we were doing anyways. I would have taken that a little bit more seriously, and went after that a little harder. So,
Andrew, failures
all the time, man.
Right.
I think probably the most recent one is like underestimating like the need for like resource allocation, right? Like intellectual capital, that stuff. And this is something that is sort of tied to like self-doubt. I like consistently like overestimate my ability to like do everything from top to bottom. You know what I mean? Like when I first started this shit, I used to take pride in being able to go from 10,000 feet to 10 inches in like 3 seconds. You know what I mean? And that's cool and all, but you realize that at a certain point, like you become the blocker. like you're the reason we're not able to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C. And it's like, yeah, you have to shift gears, because what you needed to do in months 0 to 6 or 0 to 12 is very different now that everybody knows what the fuck you're doing and who you are, right? Like your planning has to shift, and you have to trust people. And it's very difficult for me to trust people because I don't, and it's not, for me, it's not any sort of like maliciousness or anything like that. I'm like, I know I can push myself, and 9 times out of 10, my output will probably be better than yours, just because like I'm like Kobe generation, man, like insane, right? Like I'm going to push it forward, and I understand that I cannot and should not place that same intensity on people. So it's like, instead of me trying to like, hey, I need you to do this, 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 and this. This is the date, but the managerial sort of things.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm gonna just eat it myself. And then
Right.
you can't. At a certain point, you can't, you know?
Yo, I could just see Andrew walk in and it just MJ last dance and everybody in the goddamn company.
Bro,
making people
and everybody was like responding to Last Dance, like, oh, Jordan is asshole. I'm like, wait, did we watch the same documentary? Because like this dude is on to something. Like that's how he leads.
He gets me. No.
Right.
Yo, people like run into the stalls and shit to go cry and shit. Like, man, I don't know. What about you, Dries? Adrian, I'm sorry. Gotta keep it on. Adrian.
Whatever. I think for me, more recently is timing, right? My brain and timing. Like I heard somebody say like some quick little Instagram thing. It was like he was really good at being an investor, but not so much an entrepreneur, right? And something about the conversation that they were having struck me. I'll find it back. It was just like your mindset when you're building something or you're growing something, you're taking opportunities, has to be in opportunity mindset and not like risk mitigation mindset, right? and I tend to, just intellectually, I think I tend to be on the risk mitigation side of things, just because that's where my brain goes. I start thinking about like, what's the budget? What works? What doesn't? Blah, 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 blah. And I did that for a career. A lot of my work was figuring what the shit that could go wrong. But sometimes, like when you're really trying to build something, you got to let go of all that shit and just be like, okay, if the ship, like it's going to work because we decided it's going to work and we're going to put the pedal to the metal.
Talk that talk.
Jump
talk that
off
talk.
And we're going to go all the way down. We don't know if we're going to come back up, but that's the mindset that I think I'm trying to be faster at versus like just deal analysis, if you will, you know? So
Right.
that's kind of and because of that, there's some real stuff that just didn't work out because of I would say because of the speed of that, you know?
Yeah. Yo, I want to ask you guys, how do you guys, because we talked about, you know, how we were dealing with like self-doubt and the failures, but on the flip side of that, how have you guys been able to deal with success? Because, you know, when you have those wins, you know, how you deal with them is really going to impact like how many more you can stack. So, you know, how many more wins you can put back to back. So how do you guys, or do you guys even think of it like that? Or do you just like, yo, fuck it, numbers on the board, you know, keep shooting? You know, what's your perspective on that?
Oh, you know what's so funny? So being professional, me and Adrian, like he like my Yoda on some shit. Like he's one of the few people that yo, I don't know what the fuck to do with this problem. Like,
yeah,
I'm gonna just throw it to you, like what to do. And this was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. Because we meet like roughly speaking like every week. And I was like, yo, I need to be anonymous. Like, I don't want nobody to know nothing about what I touch, what I do, da 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 da. Like, I think for me, it's the most surreal thing in the world that people know who I am and I don't know those people.
right.
I'm not saying I'm fucking famous or anything like that, but like,
talk your shit though. You him.
But look, dude, this was real, man. Like for a long time, like, I mean, I dressed the way I dress. I'm very low key, and like nobody knew who I was, and that made it easy to ask the question. I go sit at the bar and ask the bartender a million questions, and he's like, "Man, this fucking weirdo, nerdy dude just like want to talk to me and shit." And I'm like soaking up game. Now I don't have those moments where I can be like incognito and, you know, like try and get people's real opinions. Cause like now it's like, all right, yes, Andrew, we know who you are. We know you want to like figure shit out. Like, no, I'm gonna give you a polished answer. So like, I think for me, there's this real power in like the anonymity piece. You know what I mean? Cause for me, like, I don't really give a shit about like name recognition and shit like that, like on some Dame shit, like I'm trying to hustle for my last name.
Talk about it.
I look at when people have a perception of you, of your business, of this and that, it makes it harder to navigate those conversations and like focus on what you're supposed to focus on, because it's like a lot of shiny objects and shit like that. You know what I mean? It's distracting. And I think it would be less distracting if nobody just knew who I was, you know? And I think I'm trying to figure that angle out.
But what was the game Adrian gave you? You said you talked, and you wanted to be anonymous. What was that conversation?
Be anonymous.
He told you to be anonymous?
Pretty much. that was the gist of it.
This motherfucker.
As we're at a podcast on TV, on YouTube.
Right, as I'm giving all kind of free shit away.
No, I mean, no, because Adrian, me and him go back and forth with this, and I thought he would tell you the exact opposite, because I've been on his ass about this. Pause.
You have it, and I'm, and also Andrew too. That's you know, I'm a lot more in the forefront. But I remember that conversation also. Like, I think what I did bring up is, which is a lesson that I'm learning every day, is just like, to a certain extent, like the other parts of the game of growing and scaling is like confronting. Yeah. There's a lot of confrontation when you have to be up in the face of things. When you are the face of things, you confront things, right? People come to you, things aren't working. You have to deal with, you know, basically being accountable for the whole thing that's in front of you that represents your name. And, you know, my name is my name. So there's a level of pressure, you know, that's there. And so I think part of that conversation is how to let that pressure off, but also like learning the skill of, you know, boxing, in that there's a level of like, we all have to learn it until we can be behind the scenes completely off grid, you know?
Wait, so why are we seeking anonymity? You're saying because of,
so it came from a specific Exclave question. And what I was trying to figure out is, at a certain point, when I indirectly became like the face of the brand because I started the brand, and it was never my intent. Like, I don't think, only until recently, like my name or picture was like in any sort of thing that we put out. It was like I designed it to be something for Black people to take ownership of themselves. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want you to speak about Exclave like, oh, this is dope dude in New Orleans that's doing yada, 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 because like, I'm human. Like, I'm sure I got shit that I believe that people are like, yo, bro, you are insane. Like, fuck out of here. I'm not supporting your brand. And, you know, going back to freedom, like, I'm gonna still say what the fuck I want to say. I'm not gonna not say something because you know, want me to, and you're gonna buy 10,000 bottles. Fuck out of here. I'm gonna be who I am.
Right.
And for me, I guess I'm like, yo, if we could figure out how to get the Exclave brand to feel like it is the people's brand, if you will, like when you speak about it, like, I'm going to tell you a personal story of how I came in contact with this thing, why the stories that they tell are important, and I want you to have it. That has nothing to do with me, right? Like, I can be gone tomorrow. Like, I chase projects, I chase interesting stuff. You know what I mean? Like, don't buy into something because like I'm into it. Like, you know, I change my mind all the time about shit. You know,
right.
It was that very specific. Like, man, like, should I be the face? Because there is strength to it. Right? Like, you can play the opposite end. Like, I'm a fairly articulate person. Like, there's probably opportunities that I turned down that I shouldn't, to speak about the brand more and have it more publicized. You know, and get people to buy into it. But to me, I think that's like low-hanging fruit. Like, it's easy to do that sort of thing. And also too, I'm a you know, keep it a buck. The recent, basically post George Floyd, all of this like interest in Black shit, that feels weird to me. That's some weirdo shit. And I don't want to be associated with those people that are just trading in their personal identity. Like, man, like blind tasting all of that shit. This is the shit. You know,
Right.
Forget what I look like and where I come from. Because if you put me in that box, I'm gonna stay in that box, and I'm trying to be outside of all of that stuff. You know,
it is a unique balance. I don't know how to get there because you guys are playing a different game than I am. But what I would say, me personally, my opinion, for whatever it's worth, I'm a big advocate of, getting your face out there. I mean, because to me personally, people are going to identify with you as a person first, and then they're going to learn like all, your messaging and all that kind of stuff. They're like, oh damn, like Andrew's on some shit. Like, man, I have that same view. I have that same, opinion or whatever it is. And it's like, damn, like now, and he wants it to be for us. Oh, damn. So I can join into that community, but they can really tie that message to a person. And I think that's important. It was just so funny. Adrian used to come out to Houston and I'll be like, oh, my guy who's, co-owner of Elysian Bar. He put me, hey, bro.
He's like, man, no.
Hey,
man.
bro. I was like, you ain't Elon Musk, dog. Like, I mean, you don't sit your ass down and tell everybody what you do. Like, ain't nobody finna rob you in here. Like,
it's not. Yeah, it's not even. Yeah, we had that conversation. I still wrestle. I wrestle with it all the time, right? I think part of it is like, I just say I work at a restaurant and that's it. And like as we're talking about this is something that comes to mind. I don't have necessarily a question, but just more like there's a hard level of like, and I think we've all struggled with this in different parts of as either seeing it or being in it, is like, there's a certain time, like if somebody saw you as the intern, right? Now you're the intern forever.
Real shit.
And so like, how do we change our mindset for the intern that we saw and give them the credibility that they're going to rise up and might be better than us? But also, how do we break those molds where like, I was an intern at that time, but now I'm not. And I'm doing some shit and I'm going to be much more than what you've seen. And so like that funnel, I think part of it is owning your own narrative. And that's part of like the shit that I'm learning from James, because at some point, like, you gotta reshape that if you care, if you need to, but to a certain extent, it's like, I'm doing shit,
bro. And that's what I'm saying. Like, all right, so the 10 people who probably see you as an intern or whatever it was, not an intern, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, whatever that position was, like, oh, you're always there. Is that shit going to make or break your brand? And what value do you really get on putting that extra energy to change their thinking? Like, oh, god damn, like, all right, Adrian isn't here no more. He's, there. At the end of the day, who gives a fuck? I mean, you're gonna, I think over time and just doing what you do, you're gonna make that shift anyways in their mind just by the wins you're putting up. I mean, and just keep it pushing. But I don't think I don't think you should care about how somebody sees you. Like, oh, like when I started, oh, James was a financial analyst and da-da-da. Like, I don't give a damn if you see me there, cool. But, and then a couple of years later, they'll come and ask you for a job or whatever. So,
well, I think I definitely hear what you're saying. And I think for me, like, I get a tremendous amount of like value, and honestly, like I need to have like collaborative and creative conversations with people. You see what I'm saying? Like, that's the stuff, like this conversation, I'm sure like once I like hang up and I'm like, man, what are we talking about? All right, cool. I'm writing notes now. I'm like, yeah, I gotta go back to that. Like there's there.
Yeah.
When people have like very clear associations, like of what you do and how you are, their answers are tailored like to that. It's a human thing. You know what I mean? Like if I just pulled up on you like at a bar, like first meet, and I know that you're in the real estate shit, I'm going to adjust myself to like, oh, we're gonna talk about the real estate shit. You know what I mean? Instead of like let's just see where the conversation naturally goes. And I think it's for me, it's less about like how you view me. But sometimes I want to talk about investments. Sometimes I want to talk about music. Sometimes I want to talk about spirits. Like there's a lot of shit that I'm interested in and want to talk to. And I think for whatever reason, it's difficult especially when you're meeting new people. Like it's easy when people know, when we cool, we talk about whatever.
Right.
But those new relationships, they're like, oh, like if you in the spirits box, then we're just gonna talk about spirits and all of that stuff. I'm like, bro, like I fucking study philosophy and shit. Like you talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Right. You know what I mean? Right. And I think it comes, I mean, you don't have to say it as bluntly, it depends on your audience, but I mean, I think it is just saying that, you know, like, I mean, and maybe it is like maybe passively, you know, switching the conversation. Oh, they're like ask you, okay, what about rye? What about, you know, bourbons? Da 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 da. You're like, yeah, I mean, not even on some relaxed shit. I mean, it may be whatever, but it's like, hey, like, what did you think about Kendrick's album? Or damn, are the monkeypox drop? Like, goddamn, what you think about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's all that kind of crazy shit. It's just kind of like navigating that conversation. It's like, yo, there's multifacets that I have other than just this damn I'm the liquor guy or the restaurant guy or the real estate guy, you know, because
it's so funny. I just had the fucking realization as you were explaining it. I did it on like this call, like subconsciously. Like I'm always starting the conversation. Like I'm always like, let me just throw something out there and see like how people respond and react to it. It didn't even hit me until just now that that's like a coping mechanism to not wanting to just have all right, so you started the fucking distillery, like tell me about the mash bills. Tell me about I'm not gonna have that conversation.
Right. No, I appreciate that because that is exactly what kind of this whole thing is about. I mean, it's definitely you know, we try to use this platform to motivate or, you know, give game to other people wherever possible or encouragement. But at the same time, it's just like,
I think what
son, real talk. That's the last time you interrupt me, dog. Real talk. My bad. Keep going, bro.
Nah, what I was getting at, like, I'm thinking like if somebody's watching this, right, and just like thinking about like if they're trying to take their journey, and right now they are whatever intern, you know, startup analyst or whatever, and how do they shape? And I really don't care about the external world, how they necessarily see me, but sometimes some of the power players, right, the gatekeepers, to a certain extent, may see you in a certain perspective and not necessarily give you the credibility. And you have to do something outside of the norm or outside of that realm to get credibility over here that they respect, to come back here and kind of and be like, yo, I'm doing shit. And I that's what I was getting at. I guess in the conversation as we like talk through it, it's more about there is certain industries, there is some gatekeepers, you know, and some
absolutely. I think there's gatekeepers in pretty much I don't like almost every industry. I would say there's some type of gatekeeper, but on the flip side of that, it's you know, going back to I guess my thought process at one point was particularly getting into finance. I thought I had to compromise who I am or what people saw, how they saw me.
Right.
How, you know, how I talked or things, you know, very much so, to be honest and completely transparent, you know, code switching and shit. Like when I'm in the offices and how I dressed and all these different types of things, which you literally do have to do when you're trying to go into corporate American finance and investments and whatnot into these offices. And so another reason for me why it's so dope to be here, it's like somebody's going to be out there watching this shit and like, you've got 3 successful minorities not switching up a goddamn thing and they're here. Like, beards, facial hair, chains, talking shit, being able to curse, being themselves, feeling comfortable in their own skin, and they still were able to get to where they're trying to get to. And to me, that's so important. And yeah, just kind of going back to everything, is I had to learn, like, all right, I'm not really, wanting to get to like the destination with me not fully being myself within this, industry, and I'm not completely comfortable with it. So now I'm, my own boss, and I'm free, and and it's kind of crazy now because with this podcast, I mean, we're just getting started or whatever. Not saying it's, doing crazy numbers, but it's amazing how many corporate uptight motherfuckers want to get on here. You know
Awesome.
what I'm saying?
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, it's really cool to see that change, and that change the dynamic.
Quick question for you, Andrew. We've been talking, like, James left corporate America. I've been, in different pirate ships for a little while now. But you're still navigating both worlds.
Yeah.
You still legit ass have a busy full corporate job. Yeah. And are doing your venture. So, like, how do you navigate both things? Like, how do you succeed at both?
Yeah, what you doing? Are you on lunch break right now? What the fuck?
Pretty much.
No, hey, my bad. We can edit that out too. I ain't trying to stitch on you.
Nah, man, what's up? It's 6:30, bro.
Right.
Exactly.
But no, seriously, I think so. The VFA job is an interesting one, and for me, it's like it's a very strategic job. You know what I mean, right? Like when Soulja Slim said, like, switching from Magnolia into Soulja Slim is power move, right? Like, nobody took that. Like, nah, I'm going to make this decision because what makes me successful in the VFA job in terms of being able to, like, sell things, be articulate, right? Concise points, be in the mix, right? Like have a perspective, is like what I need to be doing for Exclave anyway, right? And I think for me, it's like I said, right? Like I'm chasing myself, you know what I mean? And yes, I could 100% go full-time Exclave, be in that spirits world and do that whole thing. But what I'm trying, like I like to do a bunch of different things, right? Like I want to invest in companies. I want to have conversations like this. Because for me, like I said, like the process, there's nothing more rewarding than talking to another founder and like iterating on how to solve their problem. I'm telling you, that shit is, if I could do it all day, every day, like I would. And I think that's a big part of like why VFA is important, because like I'm working muscles like subconsciously that help me, be much more efficient with how I do things with Exclave. And the other thing too, and like y'all will appreciate this, like Startup Horizons is like 3 to 5 years, right? Like it's in and out, like let's get this shit moving, get it to some point and we out of here. Spirits is different, right? Like what we're trying to do is we're trying to create like a legit family, like multi-generation, 100-year-old business, right? Like the thing I'll go back to is, what were the decisions that like Jack Daniels as a company making when they first started things to get that sort of like institutional like name recognition? Obviously updated for the time and circumstances, but like if our time horizon is, if it's not 5 years, but it's 100 years, like what should we be doing now, right? And for me, like working at VFA and just seeing consistently the vast majority of people being on this 3 to 5 year horizon, I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm seeing like pretty much every decision that everybody's making and when they're making it relative to, when they ingest capital or when they exit or when they have big riffs or when they launch new products. I'm like, all right, cool. Now let me just take that and like put it on like a different like time scale as well, you know? And I think I challenge the idea that like founders have to be 100% founders of that single entity, yada, 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 right? Like, look at all the shit Hov do. Like, he touched a lot of different shit. Like, why can't I do that? Like, look at Nip. Nip had Vector 60 and the music shit and the food shop, Slauson Tea, well, the Crenshaw. Like, he touched a lot of shit.
Right.
Like, everybody else does. Like, we can't all of a sudden because, like, nah, man, you gotta focus. Nah, fuck that. Like, I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, and this is what I feel like doing.
That's awesome. Nah, that's awesome. And you can navigate it, and like you said, I think it lets you, because the more you do, the more you're stressed thin, but the more you get that experience in as early as possible, the more you build on it.
For sure. I mean, right now, like one of the last projects that I'm working on before I head out on parental leave is redesigning the accelerator. And I'm designing the accelerator that I would have wanted to put Exclave through. So like less about the fancy pitch decks and, you know, like we're gonna copy Techstars and Y Combinator or whatever. It's like, no. For certain founders, like there are other questions that need to be answered or there are other perspectives that need to be developed. So like we have a unique position to do something fundamentally different that I think helps founders do shit that they want to do and not the things that like they're supposed to do because they signed this term sheet or they blah, 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 you know?
That's awesome. That's next level shit.
Andrew, would you consider yourself an introvert or extrovert? I'm sitting here and I'm trying to read you and I typically I could, you know, probably kind of figure it out just through conversation, even though like some, you know, people get on here and they, you know, seem to open up fairly well, but would you consider yourself, which one would you consider yourself?
I'm an extroverted introvert for sure. Like, no bullshit. Since we, you know, being vulnerable and shit, like literally right before this, you get the 10-minute like reminder, like, all right, fuck, I gotta, all right, let me get in the zone. Right? Like, let me hit the sativa real quick to get focused and like, you know, like there's some points I want to get across, but yeah, like I know how to psych myself up to have like engagements with people. My natural state is
okay.
I don't like to talk a lot.
Word.
I think that's just general guys,
especially black men too, right?
Right. Yeah. They just one word answers and gestures and shit. Nah. Have you gotten everything across, or is there anything else that you want to get across in this particular, you know, episode that you haven't already?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question. I think the most important thing that I think that I'm doing and I want other people to think about is like we all operate in certain industries, right? And you gotta make like a stupid ass, audacious, like, no, this is what we're about to do, like statement and build towards that. So like for us and with Exclave, we're trying to redefine what luxury looks like for Black people specifically, right? Like that's like, yes, quality whiskey, all of that stuff, but I want Black people to look at what does luxurious mean, feel, taste, like all of that stuff, and why is our knee-jerk reaction to get the material things and adorn ourselves with the things, right? Like you can have both. You know what I mean? Look, I got the chains, I got the Rolexes and shit like that, but it's like, I value time with people much more than that. And like, that's what luxury is for Exclave and the brand. And I want people, that's the main takeaway, right? Like
redefining
the experiences and the time. Yeah, that's luxurious. So how do we build that world to accomplish that? You know, when we take our trips, when we, you know, go home for holidays, when we just shooting the shit, right? Like, let's design the life that we want and let's just have Exclave as the backdrop for it.
And why is that so important for you to redefine luxury for the Black community? Why is that such an importance to you?
Yeah, for sure. The short answer is like Black people like nice shit, right? Like that's part of who we are. Yep. And I say that sort of tongue in cheek because it's tied to like freedom, right? At a certain point, and we still kind of see this to this day, right? Like, what's the think about them lessons that moms, pops, grandma, whoever gave you back in the day. Like, make sure your clothes are ironed. Make sure you got nice shoes on, right? Like, control how you look and how you present to the world. Not on some respectability politics shit, but like be solid in how you present. And like that's a part of like how Black people interact with one another, right? Like it's like, well, I see you with your little chains on. I like that. Yeah, what's that on your feet? Like that's how we break the ice. That's how we, build rapport. And what I challenge myself a lot about is like, yeah, it's dope to have nice shit, but like what else is there? What else is there?
Exactly.
Top and chains is cool, but more important is loyalty. Right? I'm not in the illegal world, but shit, more important is like that investment, right? Like how much you throw that 10K into somebody ventured and like bet on them. Like those are the things that are gonna move the needle for us.
Drees, that was another J bar that went right over your head, but yeah.
I'm gonna just answer it like whole lyrics.
right.
Adrian's like, right. But nah, for real. And to go back to your Adrian's question, you were talking about that 100-year horizon and what that looked like. My bad.
Yeah. For 25 years, I think the first leg of that 100-year journey is with spirits. What does it look like to? I put it to you this way, right? Like most brands, it's continental U.S., it's coast to coast. That's how we envision things, right? In 25 years, I want to make the conscious move and have successes on like looking south, right? Like what does our Caribbean thumbprint look like? What does our Central and South America thumbprint look like, right? Like there are more Black people in South America than there are in the United States, right? Like what are those stories? How do we tell those stories? How do we connect, the dots in the lineage, right? Like the name Exclave was chosen for a very specific reason, right? Like it's a geographic phenomenon. It's a portion of a country that's separated from the main part and surrounded by foreign territory. That's Black people. Like I want to start telling global Black stories and be known as that brand that's doing that. Like I want people to be like, wait, y'all based in the States? Like had no idea, because we're telling such global stories and impactful stories beyond just like the coast to coast way of looking at things, Bro, it's gonna be hard as fuck, but if you do it, bro, you win.
Right. But hearing you talk about that, bro, is crazy because just people from our generation is like, we don't think like that. We don't think on no damn 25-year, 100-year, 50-year horizons. We're 3 to 5 years, maybe 10. A lot of us are just, everything's microwave. Everything is instantaneous from everything. The way we consume, the way we, expect outcomes on things. It's everything is instantaneous. So that is crazy not crazy. And it's awesome just to hear you talk like that in those type of horizons, but it's also going to require a lot of alignment within your family and within your team and how you set things up. So you've clearly thought about that.
Me and my brother were having this conversation. So my brother worked with me on Exclave. It was a fucking family business, and we were having like the strategic conversations about shit. And like do we turn it up right now? Like, yo, let's go to DC, let's get these bottles, da, da, da. And I was like, you gotta think, be patient, be patient. Like every family like has the generation that like really takes it on the chin, right? If you're like first generation, like your immigrant parents really took it on the chin. That's a hard thing to do. You know what I mean? And, or somebody worked 3, 4, 5 jobs to make sure that everybody was college educated and had that platform. Meanwhile, like your parents couldn't read above a certain level or had, you know, they had to do what they had to do. And my parents for sure, and my grandparents for sure, like made sacrifices to put me and my brothers in certain positions. And I, honestly, if it wasn't for those sacrifices, I wouldn't have that perspective of like, yo, this is a real long game. And it's like, okay, cool. If I dedicate my life to taking it on the chin, imagine what everybody else around me is going to have available to them. It's going to be things that I can't even conceptualize. You know what I mean? And I think because I'm a workaholic anyway, I'm gonna work regardless. I've accepted that about myself. I might as well try and put other people in better positions, and not even better positions that I can't even think exist. You know what I mean?
So let me ask you this. I mean, you got a son that's about to be born. You're clearly looking generations down the line, and he just comes to you one day and is like, Pops, I appreciate everything you've done. I'm so grateful for this business, but yo, the spirits business is not for me. Like, and I don't want to be, I'm not trying to put that out there, negativity.
No,
yeah.
for sure.
I mean, because, you know, hopefully not, especially like, you know, with what me and Rachel and I are creating over here. This is definitely something we want to pass down, but we talked about freedom. You know, we've talked about all these different things. Is it hypocritical for us to then, I guess, kind of push our kids into that? I mean, or do you push your kids into that?
You know, obviously, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'm anticipating the question before my son is even born, right?
You have to, yeah. And
I think and this is obviously a new thought and will likely evolve over time, but my thing is like, yeah, of course. If you are like just working for Exclave, then I failed, right? Like there are ways in which you can have the full weight, support, leverage of the brand and still do what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like if you want to just be an artist, cool. There's still like a behemoth for you to move mountains to get to that certain point. You know what I mean? Like I firmly believe in like letting kids specifically like, yo, try it out. What you think? Like, how do you fit? Because what I'm trying to build is like, it's not just a company, right? Like it's a power base of sorts. You know what I mean? My goal for my kids, there's going to be the moment where they come to me with what they want to do. Cool. Let's slot you in here. We're going to make these calls, what you need done. Right. I still expect you to perform at the top of your fucking game.
Absolutely.
That's not change, but you don't have to be in the spirits business, you know?
Right. And hopefully,
I've met people that are in a 5th generation business, right? That's right now, currently. And you got 5 generations in, they've kept it in the family. It's a family business. And what they have and what's made them work is they have some people throughout the generations have decided to jump in the business, and some other people have been out of it. But as a family, they have a board, right? And every kind of like subset of each family has a board seat. So they make certain decisions as a board, like a company. That's right. And on top of that, everybody's got, the accounts and all the other stuff that gives you that financial freedom to do the things that you want to do. And then if somebody chooses to, be an executive, sure, let's give you the platform and you learn how to do it right. And if you suck at it, then maybe there's more grace for you, but maybe you go learn somewhere else first and then come back.
Right. Or the sexier thing to do is just go full on Succession on them. Have y'all guys seen that show?
Yes.
Succession?
Right.
And yo, if you wild out like him, bro,
right.
shit, I don't know how sustainable that shit would be, but that shit would be dope to watch.
Entertaining.
Yeah, man. I usually try to end it with, when it's all said and done, what does Andrew want to be remembered for? You've kind of already touched on it, but if you want, if you want to bless us and double back and kind of just put a nice bow on it, I, appreciate it.
For sure. I think personally, I want to be remembered as somebody that tried to be as free and as authentic as he possibly could, right? Professionally, I can't believe that we shitted on those ideas 60 years ago, because this motherfucker was right. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. Like, I told y'all, right? Like, I want to die and be like, I told you.
Right. Told you, motherfucker.
That's my last thing, like, sarcastic joke. Like, I know we just meet, but I'm a very, like, sarcastic person. I like to crack a lot of jokes. And, like, that's the ultimate joke. Like, I told y'all.
Right. For real. Nah, bro, I appreciate it. And so I know you like try to, like to play behind the scenes, but hey, how can we reach out to you on the socials? Where can you be reached at if somebody has some questions or want to link with you? How can we do that?
Yeah, for sure. Hit me on Instagram, andrew.j.albert, or at Exclave Spirits. Yeah, feel free to hit me up. Like, even though I am an introvert, like I said, I get a lot of joy out of, like, responding to questions, inquiries, problems, and shit like that. So, I mean, selfishly, I need that. So,
dope. And if we're trying to cop some, some whiskey, how do we do that? How do we cop some Exclave?
Yep. Outside of Louisiana, we ship to about 30, 40 different states. Exclavespirits.com. In state, we got 80, 90 different accounts. At the top, Elysian Bar, obviously, Total Wine, Dorniacs, Rouse's, all the big chains in New Orleans as well.
Dope. Man, this has been a super dope conversation. I want Andrew, thank you so much. My brother Adrian, much appreciation to you. We all are super busy. We could have been doing other things. So for you guys to take out, time of your day to us to rap, much appreciated. And again, Adrian, how can we, reach out to you on your socials as well?
Instagram, Adrian on the go. That link,
yep.
Send the DM, happy to talk. Same as Andrew. I enjoy trying to figure out problem solving, all of that. So nothing's too small, nothing's too big. So those are the things. And we rap about, all three of us talk about these things all the time. So
for sure. Nah, man, Andrew, man, it was dope meeting you, bro. So as soon as I get back to the city, man, I'm gonna come check you out.
Sure.
And I'm definitely copping some Exclave as soon as we get off of here. And I'm gonna check it out. And which one should I get, man? Should I get the because I know you have a rye, and what's the other one you have?
Bourbon.
Yeah, so I guess
what do you typically drink, cocktail wise, spirit wise?
I'm more I drink the single malt scotch, and then I drink sue me a lot of Douce. So yeah.
Get the rye.
Okay. Adrian's like goddamn Stan. Yo, Jay, I wrote you 3 times. You didn't respond.
Right.
Okay. Nah, cool. So I'll definitely I'm gonna check out the rye and I'll shoot you a message, let you know what I thought about it. But nah, man, hey, this has been another episode of Masterminds. Appreciate you guys for hopping on, and I want you guys to anybody listening out there, check in with us weekly. We have new episodes every Thursday. You can catch us on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're listening to your podcast. So with that being said, another episode of Masterminds, we're out. Appreciate you guys.